Hola, hola. Buenas, ¿cómo están? Welcome to the American Dream Despite It All. Al Grano. I'm your host, Nora Vargas, and I am so honored to share this space with you. We're living in changing times around the world and right here at home. We're fighting for our democracy, for our families, our communities, and sometimes for our own sense of purpose. So, how do we stay grounded? How do we fight for what matters? And how do we make sure that we're taking care of ourselves? How do we lead with corazón and integrity when the world keeps shifting beneath our feet? That's why I created the podcast to get to Al Grano, to talk about what leadership, purpose, community, and identity look like in real life. Not the polished version, pero la verdad. So let's get into today's topic, porque esto es Al Grano. Let's talk about what this really means in our lives, in our leadership, and in our corazón. Every leader, every mujer I admire has a circle behind them and alongside them, because none of us rise alone, and none of us are meant to lead alone. Truth is, the higher you climb, the more important that circle becomes, because leadership can feel like a burden sometimes, and it can be kind of lonely. But it shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to live in isolation. Leadership should feel empowering, exciting, and I know this sounds interesting, but it should be manageable. And to me, manageable is exactly the right word, because no one should ever carry everything alone, right? In my journey, the boards I've served on, the roles I've had, the rooms I've walked into, none of it has happened alone. Now, como dicen, let's not get it twisted. I always am very prepared. I always do the work. I show up, and people know they can count on me. But along the way, a lot of these opportunities have presented themselves because someone opened a door, someone made a call, someone said, Nora, you need to be in this room. They need you. There were men and women throughout my trajectory, brilliant, strong, generous, who guided me through moments of doubt. People who saw something in me and weren't afraid to name it. And I always say, right, sometimes people see things in you that you don't even see in yourself. So you got to make sure you let them do that. And I'm sharing, I want to share this story today. I might have shared it before, but I want to share it because I think many of you know there's one of the public boards that I served on was CalSTRS, California Teacher Retirement Board. Super, super proud of serving on that board. It's one of the largest pension boards, teacher pension boards in the country and also globally. And I remember when I got the call, it was during Governor Jerry Brown's administration, and I was a community college trustee, and they were trying to fill a seat with a community college trustee member. And I remember getting the call and I kept thinking, cuando me hablaron, I was like, oh my God, I barely understand what like my own 401k does, right? I'm just being real, I'm being honest. And I remember saying, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this position. Like maybe you should get somebody who's like an expert in pensions and asset management and things like that. I didn't even know the language, And to be honest with you, I learned so much from saying yes to that opportunity. For one, I learned that when the governor calls, you don't say no. Por presumir, pero I was really like, okay, I got you. But it reminded me of something super powerful, that the people who championed me for that role had actually worked with me. So they knew my integrity, they knew my work ethic, they knew that I could hold my own, and they also knew, and which is what they said to me, we know that you will ask the right questions because you're doing this for the community and you're going to be able to be asking the right questions on behalf of teachers. And so, when people tell you every day is an interview, and I don't want to put that much pressure on people, but it's true, right? When you are walking in your journey and you're doing your job and you go above and beyond and you are doing things, people notice. Doesn't mean that you have to be perfect all the time, but when you do things from your why and you're really getting things done, people notice. And so that idea that every day is an interview is true. And it's super on point. You never know who's watching you. You never know who's taking note. And you never know who's thinking, Mira, es ella, like maybe she should do this or maybe she should do that. And she's ready. And so here's the thing. We don't talk enough about the fact that when we're talking about leadership, usually we talk about vision, we talk about purpose, we talk about grit and resilience. I like grit more than I like resilience, but we talk about discipline, but we don't talk enough about your community, tu círculo. We don't talk about that, right? I mean, we hear it, we've heard it from elected officials and from leaders when they talk about this idea of what's your village, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, I think that the power of your people, the people around you, is so, so powerful, right? Who are your champions? Who are your mentors? ¿Quiénes son tus hadas madrinas? Not your coaches, right? Because your coaches usually pay for them, saying. But really, it's your champions, your mentors, and your hada madrinas. And I call them hada madrinas because I've been very blessed that I've had some amazing people in my journey that have been folks who have really advocated for me. And so, not everyone should have access to your inner circle. And I think that's really important, right? Because when you do work in the community or when you're a leader and you're trying to, be part of this bigger movement of doing good, sometimes people feel like they can actually be imposing on you, and they believe that they sit in and they're part of your personal board of directors or your board of advisors. And they talk about this a lot in leadership, right? Making sure that you always have that group of folks. But I think that part of leadership and part of having that evolution is knowing who is who. And trust me when I say, because I know this too well, right? When you're an elected official, when you are the CEO or the maki mak, all that stuff, todo mundo thinks that you walk on water, everybody loves you, todo mundo te dice que eres muy fregón, que te echan flores. Everybody wants something, of course, everybody has an opinion, but the reality is not everybody's willing to tell you the truth. And to me, I think that is one of the biggest disservices that happens when you are in leadership roles at that level. Because what happens is many times people surround themselves with people who only tell you things that you're amazing. I mean, a quien no le gusta que le digan que es lo máximo. Hello. Pero that's the part of leadership that I believe is dangerous, not just in public service, but in any role, right? You don't need people who blow smoke up your ya sabes qué. Ustedes me entienden. What you really need around you is people who keep you grounded, people with integrity, people who aren't afraid to tell you when you're a little off. And sometimes, we all get tired. We're human, and sometimes se te sube a la cabeza. You can't help yourself because everybody's telling you how amazing you are and how great you are. Ay, como tú eres dos. And of course, to be in leadership roles, you are very unique and you have certain skills, etc. But sometimes you need to recenter, and you need people around you that are able to be honest with you, even when it's hard to hear. It is so necessary. Every leader needs at least one person that is a truth teller. Ese alguien que te va a decir la verdad sin miedo, o a veces con poquito miedo, right? Because they work for you. But if you can have someone who either works for you or who's part of your inner circle, someone who, even if it's uncomfortable, they are going to be honest with you. Because I believe that one of the most dangerous things in leadership is just having yes people around you. And that's very, very dangerous. And so, as we're thinking about, all of this, and I love my community and I also love the truth, but I think it's important to keep it real, right? Y es esa idea de que no manches, I can't believe you're doing that, right? Some people will believe that they're part of your circle and they're your self-appointed mentors. Sometimes people who've never navigated your career, or the friend that says, ay, mija, pero ¿para qué sigues con tanta cosa? Or, why are you dreaming that much bigger? Or, like es demasiado eso, right? Or the colleague who suddenly becomes your coach because somehow they read an article on LinkedIn and ya saben todo. That's fine. I totally get it. Some people come from a good space. But what's I think really important in this component and this piece of it that I want you to take with you is that there's a reality that not everybody should be sitting at your table, right? Not everyone gets a badge to be on your board of advisors or board of directors. Not everyone deserves that backstage access to your purpose. And I know right now with social media, we let people in, all of that is real, but there has to be a space where you have people who are your champions, your mentors, your Hada Madrinas are people who are much more intentional in your relationship. They're not accidental ones. And so it's important because as we're thinking about nuestro granito de arena, de oro, perdón, as we're moving forward and what your reflection is and your takeaway, it's really important to remember you are not meant to do this alone, right? And for some reason, in a lot of leadership rules books, we talk a lot about that. It's alone. And for us who come from the power of community, I think it's really important that we remember that you're not meant to do this alone. Your evolution requires community. Your purpose requires support. Your leadership requires your village. And that's really, really powerful. Powerful because it allows you to really move forward and really think about who the evolution of you is as a leader. And these folks around you will help you. And so some of the tools that I want you to take with you today, as you think about the power of your people, who are your champions, who are your mentors, y quiénes son tus hadas madrinas, I want you to remember that there's a couple of things that you can do, right? You can really think about the power of circle audit, right? Esa persona que está alrededor de mí, do they expand me or do they shrink me? ¿Me echan porras? Are they my champions? Are they saying, have you heard yourself? You got this, right? You really want to figure out who these champions are, because what you want is people who speak your name in rooms where the decisions are getting made when you're not there. Pero no la gente que va a decir, pues no sé, she's más o menos. No. The people who are going to be like, oh my God, have you met this person? They got this. And you may not think that they have this experience, but they really are pretty amazing. Those are your champions. The people who are going to be out there advocating for you, even when you're not at the table. And then, you choose a mentor. And sometimes your mentors serve in different seasons. Different than your coach, right? A coach is someone who is helping you and giving you that space so that you can be the best person that you can be, and there's tools and techniques, etc. But your mentor is someone who cares about you and who's going to have that deep connection. Not that your coach doesn't, but your mentor is someone who may have some of your experiences, your background, somebody who you aspire to be, right? Somebody who can teach you things that you may not know anything about, and who are going to be there for you to be very focused on where you want to go and what you want to accomplish. And again, sometimes those mentors, they evolve as you evolve, and that's okay. You can still have a relationship with them, but the mentor that I had when I was running campaigns or I was a political consultant is very different than the mentors that I had when I was an elected official, or now as a business owner, right? I am trying to make sure that I am around people who are in my field, who are, exploring different opportunities so that I can better understand as well. And that's very, very powerful. And then I think about the Hada Madrinas, and I think about, Cenicienta, I would sing the song, right? Con la chachica mula cova de Islandia, pero no me lo sé. Pero bueno, these are the people who illuminate your possibilities. These are the folks who are going to be there with you, and they're going to sprinkle this piece of happiness and love when you need it the most. And these are the folks who really believe in you when you don't even believe in yourself sometimes. And to me, that's super powerful, to be somebody's Hada Madrinas. And I'm very blessed to have many of them. And I hope I'm the same to some folks, right? But it's really, I think, really powerful when you have other folks who are, and they don't have to just be from the, your same gender, right? But to me, it has been these amazing mujeres throughout my trajectory who have, sprinkled some love, some inspiration, and some connection when I needed the most. And so, as you're thinking about all of this, also become what you seek, right? To attract champions, you have to be a champion. To attract mentors, you have to be a mentor. And to attract Hada Madrinas, you also have to sprinkle some magic on someone else's life. So, as you think about today's podcast and the power of your people, champions, mentors, y Hada Madrinas, I want you to really think about where you are, right? You are powerful on your own. Absolutely. You've made it this far. You're the first one in your family. Eres una fregona. But you're unstoppable when you have your community, your people, tu gente, la gente que te entiende, right? And your community is not a luxury, right? Your community is part of your strategy, is part of your vision. It's part of becoming the best that you can be as a leader. So today, I want to thank you for joining me on El Grano, the American Dream Despite It All. I hope that today's episode resonated with you, that you share it, that you tag me at El Grano con Nora, and that you tell me who your champions and who your mentors are. I want you to keep leading with corazón. I want you to own your power. I never want you to dim your light. Y no se les olvide, #GlowEra. Y nos vemos a la próxima.